again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true. And it feels alright when they come and say to you.
Good evening, welcome to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith. It is the professionals, joined as always by Mitch, Stu and George to look back at the last 7 days at Newcastle United and look back on yesterday's game as well, and maybe talk about 7-0 today. Wow, what a result that was, by the way. Heaviest defeat since the 1930s for Manchester United at Anfield today. I don't think there'd be anybody weeping about that on Tyneside. If you've got anything to ask the lads, get the questions in the YouTube chat and we'll endeavour to answer them. Okay, George, a day after the defeat at Manchester City, how are you feeling about it today?
Well, I was disappointed yesterday, but I'm angry today because when I've had it yesterday, I hadn't a chance to see it. I was listening to it yesterday, but after seeing where I could on the television last night and more today, and listening to what people like Shearer and the Manchester City manager have had to say about it, I'm quite angry. I'm angry because we lost the game because we didn't have somebody to put the ball in the back of the net. And specifically because, as I've been saying for a week or two now, we didn't have a centre forward. At Wembley, we didn't have a centre forward. And, you know, you're not going to win games if you... I know it's an easy thing to say, you're not going to win games if you don't score goals. But we're making chances, we're just not putting them in. And that's a recipe for disaster. And what's worse is the team isn't playing that bad. I mean, some of the football yesterday was brilliant and had them on the ropes a couple of times and certainly forged the chances. They got 2 goals, but that 2 pieces of individual brilliance, and you've got to cater for that as well. But why haven't we got somebody that can have the little bit of individual brilliance that we've been having earlier in the season? Suddenly it seems to have stopped. And the whole thing is highlighted for me by the fact when I was watching the game as much as I could see it with my eyes, was that, yes, Callum Wilson could have scored 2 goals if he'd had his shooting boots on. But there are lots of other things he didn't do either. He wasn't chasing like he had before. He wasn't going for balls in the air like he was before. And I just found all that extremely disappointing. So, I'm a bit more angry than I was yesterday, but not disappointed by the way we played. I mean, some of the football was good, and I'm sure we will get back to winning ways, but we need a real rethink about going forward. The worry for me is if Wilson's getting in the team out of loyalty from Eddie Howe, the danger for Eddie Howe is, when does it cost him something if he's so loyal? Because that's where it'll go eventually if it continues like it is at the moment. So that's how I feel today. And the 7-0, having watched that, well, all I kept saying to myself is, why didn't we do that last week to them? Why didn't we have a go at them last week? We never really did. And some of the behaviour of Manchester players, that idiot they've called Bruno, he shouldn't be on a football field. He's just an arrogant horrible little man. And, you know, the guy that was singing and dancing about Casemiro today was just taken to the cleaners. Well and truly taken to the cleaners. So, it just made me think, well, why didn't we have a go at them? Why didn't we? So there you are. That's my initial analysis.
I've got to be honest, like everybody on social media, as always, is going completely over the top. And Barry Hogan mentioned at the start there, he's watched an old NUFC Matters. I've actually managed to get the first 18 episodes of NUFC Matters downloaded, which were from season 2000. Well, to go from 2018 to 2020, it was a lot of the early stuff I did with Gibbo and Supermac. And I've got to be honest, I've watched a few of them. I've had to watch them. I didn't know what they were about. And I've loaded them one per day for the next couple of weeks. And wow, going to Leicester and getting beaten 5-0. And I'm not being funny. Things are a hell of a lot better than they were. And we just had a succession of 3 games against Liverpool, against Man City, Manchester United in the cup final, of course. From our perspective, we lost all 3 games 2-0 because we couldn't, like you said, George, we couldn't score goals. We've lost our mojo in front of goal, and that's disappointing. But we're playing well. I listened to one of those things today. Malcolm's on going. He reads the stats out. Newcastle's it was a game against Southampton. Southampton at St James's Park had 75% possession in the game. I mean, Steve Bruce's team at its finest, and wow. And then hearing Gibbo on one of the shows go, these new signings, Joe Linton, Miggy Almiron, and ASM, where are we going to play them? Steve Bruce doesn't seem to have a clue. He seems to have got the scouts to bring them in, and I'm thinking, wow. Now look at the performances we've had out of Almiron this season. Look at the performances we've had out of Joe Linton. ASM turned it round, okay, and he's turning it round again slowly, very slowly, it has to be said. But ultimately, things are so much better. And the dreaded Mike Ashley was mentioned a few times on them shows. So you know what? I just think everybody on social media needs to calm down, have a bit of perspective, sit and watch these videos over the next couple of weeks. Whenever you're feeling as if the world's against you and we've got a problem, think again. Because honestly, I've just said to the lads before we came on air, looking at that league table now, Liverpool have just gone above us. We're in 6th place now. We've got a game in hand on Liverpool. We're a goal behind them, goal difference wise, with 14 games to go. And we've got a battle at the end of the season. And you know what? It's not a battle to stay up. It's a battle for Europe. And that's the way it should be for us. And I'm over the bloody moon. So I'm not disappointed, as you can tell. I wasn't disappointed after Wembley last week. I had a great weekend. I was gutted to lose, but I didn't come back moaning and groaning. I was, I put it behind us quite quickly. And I'm going to see him again. And I think we'll beat Wolves at the weekend. And I think things will turn around again. Let's hope we can go on another run. Stu, not very often I have a rant, mate, but there's another one. What about you, mate? How are you feeling after yesterday?
Yesterday, I thought we wanted and needed a reaction from the cup final, and I think we got it, to be honest. And we were probably having our best spell of the game when they scored the second. And the camera zoomed in on Pep, and you could the relief on his face, you could see it. It was visually palpable. And you blew his cheeks out and everything. We're not scoring at the moment, but I mentioned on Wednesday, when do we stop talking about where we were and stuff like that? Because we can't keep using that as a yardstick, because we've set new yardsticks, and we could be a victim of our own success because we've massively overachieved in the first half of the season. But that doesn't mean we should be underachieving the second part to balance it out. But we still have a team there. We have players there that can actually give us what we need. And Champions League qualification, although now, if you read things on social media, it's a nigh on impossibility. It's still in our hands. We win our games in hands and we're 4th. But the key is to win those games in hand. And as George said, you've got to score goals to win games. So that leads us to where you think... Chris Wood, we've never won since he left. Now, I'm not saying that would be winning these games with him playing, but it's what he's done behind the scenes. He was a huge part of that dressing room, and things like that can have an effect. I thought Lascelles was very good. But when you're talking about your videos there, Steve, from the past, the one thing I'd like to say to compare, even though I've just said we shouldn't, is 12 months ago, we were all sitting hoping there was going to be 3 teams worse than us to stay in the division. And now, realistically, we're maybe 3 better than us, and maybe 3 or 4 that would be better than us, and that's how far we've come. So we'll have to have a bit of perspective and be a bit realistic with the criticism, not go overboard with it, because I thought they put a great shift in yesterday, and whether it be by bad luck or misfortune, if that game had finished a draw, I don't think any Manchester City fan could have complained. On the balance of play, so you've seen today Liverpool have struggled all season, but when it clicks, they can batter anyone, and I believe we're the same. And let's just hope it is Wolves, And I thought our club captain came in yesterday, Lascelles, and I didn't think he missed a beat. I thought he had a cracking game. And to be fair, he played the 90-plus minutes, and he wasn't struggling for fitness. So that shows he's still committed to everything.
Man of the match for me, Stu.
Yeah, I thought he had a really, really good game. And he was probably our best defender. And so we can point fingers about who's not performing. I think a blind man can see who's not playing to the best of their ability, or shall we say early season form. But I reckon we have a manager who's got so much credit in the bank that he's going to look at this and think, right, we need to start resting players. But it can have the adverse effect as well. You rest someone when they're not playing well, and it can destroy the confidence further. But at the same time, he's got to start looking after this team and the results. We've got 14 games to go. We need to get realistically between, I would say, 27 to 30 points to get Champions League. So he's gonna have to win, I would say, 9 of those games, 9 of those 14, and draw a couple. But we're capable of doing it. And what I was pleased about yesterday, well, one of the things I was pleased about watching the game yesterday was the start to press again. When Man City would take the goal kicks, the start of possession and forcing the errors, and that's all you've got to do. You run at them, make them pass the ball quicker than they wanted to, and we get the ball back. Then the key is what we do with it, and just seems to be a lack of confidence. But to me, I think it's fixable. A couple of changes, get a bit more pace up front, and actually have the belief to go for it. And we've got I wouldn't say an easy run of fixtures, but a more comfortable run of fixtures over the next 5 or 6 games, what we've had the last 3. So it is in our favour. It's still in our hands, and I think we have very, very many reasons to be optimistic and positive. And I just hope that we take Wolves apart this coming weekend.
Yeah, and I wouldn't drop Lascelles. I've got to be honest. I never thought I would say that.
Deserve to.
Because yesterday, I've got to be honest, I groaned a bit when I saw him and thinking, well, what is the matter with Matty Targett? Put Dan Burn in the middle and just move it. But like I said at the start of the Match Day Live yesterday, Eddie Howe gets paid to make the decisions. Let's hope he's made the right one. And
when was his last bad game? When was Lascelles' last bad? Yeah,
and you couldn't judge Lascelles on yesterday because he was man of the match for me. I even went, I gave him man of the match. He was outstanding yesterday. He had a great game, and he was, you could say it was either, him and Botman, there was a massive gap between them for the first goal. That's Foden found the space. You've got to give Foden the credit, but I couldn't fault him. Lascelles was superb, and he gives you the threat up front from corners, which nobody else seems to be able to do from the back four. So, yeah, listen, you're right. When was his last bad game? I think it's a valid point as well. Mitch, hope you're well, mate, and you've recovered from a night out with Stu. Give us your views on yesterday's game, mate.
Well, I find it interesting yesterday that everybody certainly seemed quite flat. Even the atmosphere in Brooklyn, but I think Stu would agree, was flat. It wasn't like it normally was. There was something
full of Newcastle fans, Mitch, is it?
Absolutely, yeah. Except it wasn't yesterday. It was probably about half as many who normally turn out. Now, that might be something to do with the time of the fixture, with it being an early fixture, but still, it seemed a little flat. Everybody seemed a little bit down. Picked that up from other people through social media and other parts of the world as well. The stats say we're still producing the chances that we were, but XG's not changed significantly. We're just not putting them away. And when you've got a centre forward who makes an air shot like he did when it was probably easier to tuck it into the back of the net, we've got a problem with a centre forward who was bang out of form. And the question I'm asking now is how long can Eddie Howe persist with that on the evidence of yesterday's game again? The one thing today's game between Liverpool and Man United tells you is that in this level, if your form drops by as much as a single percentage, you would get stuffed at any one moment in time off any of the top teams. And I include us in that. We are due to give somebody a proper shellacking. We've been due for a long time. And I think he needs to come up with an answer about how we're going to sort out the problem we've got in terms of taking chances. And I think it's got to be more than just a personnel shake-up. We seem to have been found out in terms of formation and some of the little things we do. that little triangle of Bruno and Miggy and Trippier on the right-hand side seems to have been worked out a little bit, although yesterday they got a little bit more joy. We don't seem to have a plan B. I was critical of Steve Bruce for this. Steve Bruce was one plan only. Seems to me like Eddie Howe was one plan only. And I don't see what alternatives we've got, because when he makes substitutions, it just seems to be personnel, not positional necessarily. But again, as you say, he's paid to make the choices, and that's the way he wants to play. And he obviously wants everybody clearly understanding the rules that they're slotting into. But and also again, Shaw was missing yesterday, I believe. Correct us if I'm wrong, because of a concussion issue, which was left over from the match on at the cup final.
Yeah,
that shows you what a shambles the concussion protocol in professional football is.
Yeah,
because he should not have been allowed to finish that final, let alone be out for the next game. I've seen a copy of the concussion protocol, and I understand concussion, but I don't understand that protocol. It's so many grey areas in it. It's untrue. And that removes safety for players from the game. But it did give Lascelles a fantastic opportunity. And I saw somebody who handled the physicality of Haaland immensely well. And I don't think many centre-backs can do that. And I think
I said to Steve yesterday, I thought that's why he was on.
Yeah. You could see he was going to take no shit. I just wish at the end, when he was playing silly buggers with the corners, somebody would have just taken one for the team and two-footed him at one point. That would have been quite amusing. But we're in this really weird position because we've made these new yardsticks, as Stu rightly says. We're looking at what's going on. And saying, well, hang on, does last week now feel like a totally missed opportunity? Yes. But for me, it did last week. Yeah. I think I'm actually in a better mind about it this week than I was last week. And I think we've got to remember, like I said, you rock up to any one of these top teams in this division, and you go there with the 1% off your normal mark, you're going to get a hammering. And that's exactly what we've seen today from Man United. They've been dismantled by Liverpool. And also it shows how good our performance against Liverpool with 10 men was. You know, I think there's things we can still find to take away from these games. And it's so very frustrating. But I think I'd be very interested to see what he does against Wolves, because I think he will ring the changes and then some. Just have this feeling the time's come.
That's interesting, right? Because that was my next point to call. We'll never discuss what we're going to talk about on here. We'll let the chat lead it as well. But my next question really was going to be about Wilson, because and you can see the chat tonight is Wilson. I'm having the chat wherever I am, I'm meeting Newcastle fans when I'm out and about, and it's always the discussion. We don't know what is a matter with Wilson. None of us can say categorically what is a matter with Mitch. And I'll come to you first this time. Some people, you can see it in the chat. He went all out at the start of the season to get in the World Cup. Now he's not. Now he's achieved what he wanted to do. He's not interested. I don't think that's right. Some people are saying he's had COVID. We don't know, because it's a private matter and the club won't release something like that. Other people are saying it's a hamstring. Again, he wouldn't be on the bench or playing, especially yesterday after the cup final, if he had a hamstring. So it's not that. Other people are saying it's something mental. Maybe it's mentally. He's thinking about injuries and he's not putting a full effort in. Other people are saying he's past it. Other people are saying that, from his perspective, it's just a centre forward going through a bad run, which happens. I've got to be honest, that's what I believe. I believe Callum Wilson is going through a bad run as a centre forward, and it's as simple as that. I don't believe on any of this other stuff. And I think watching him yesterday, that was a player low on confidence, scored 1 goal in 12 or 13 games, and he's low on confidence. And I said it earlier on in the WhatsApp chat that we've got as well. He's struggling because he's getting on. He is older, but he's been asked to play in this formation where, you know, it's very difficult as a forward. And I don't think we're playing to his strengths. That's my view, Mitch. What's yours?
I'd agree with you. The bottom line is, for me, he's a centre forward bang out of form. Whatever the reasons for, and you know what my personal opinion is from information I've been given about what has contributed to that. But I think it's getting to the point where I think Howe has to do something to protect him a bit more, because he's the only striker and he's very exposed in that, not just physically and on the pitch, but in also that when the chances aren't going his way and he does things like he did yesterday, it's glaring and it's all on his shoulders. And part of me wonders, does he need rested to protect him from himself? Because he's probably saying to How? No, leave us in. I'm still going. I'm still want to do this, because he's very much comes across as a team man, you know. So it's a tough one in that respect. But I think it's quite simple. He's not in form and needs to be now. I think the time's come to rest him, take him out the firing line,
and replace him with who, Mitch?
Well, our only option at the minute is Isaac.
I would play Willock. I'd play Willock.
And that's not a like for like replacement.
Yeah.
You know, but equally, I'm getting a little bit puzzled at seeing a £60 million player sitting on the bench week in, week out.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's time he was utilised. But because Wood's gone, and here's the thing that gets me. If Wood was still in the squad, would people be crying out for Wood to be in the team? And we know what the answer to that is.
Form's gone downhill since we got rid of him.
The way, yeah, but the way people were talking about Wood before he was sold, would there be a clamour from our fan base to put Wood in that team? No. The answer is absolutely not. But without him there, I guess this is the gamble that they've taken. This is why Amanda Staveley was talking through the week about how we are working around FFP, that we don't want to hit the FFP buffers. That deal for Wood, along with the deal for Shelby, financially were phenomenal. Better than good. And I guess this is the chance that we've had to take to get that ability to look at what we're going to do in the next transfer window. We've left ourselves a little late up front. We've left ourselves a little late in central midfield. And I don't think anybody could have predicted that in both of those ways would come together and bite one on the arse at the same time. One of them maybe, but I think both are really now. And I guess that's the roll of the dice, isn't it? That's the chance we took. But I think now, for his own sake, I think Callum Wilson needs taken out the team, and we need to try something different. And that something different simply has to involve Isaac, because we don't really have many other options.
Okay, Mitch, thanks for that. Stu, what about you? What's your take on Wilson?
Well, I've always been a huge fan of Wilson, and the work rate he puts in, the running down the channel has been a nightmare for defenders. But if you're judging centre forwards on goals, just like Haaland is, he's out of form at the moment. And the stats tell you that it's 1 goal in 13. He's out of form. But it's not just that, is it? He looks a yard short. He looks like his strength isn't there. His willingness to put the runs in, his guile, everything that completes Callum Wilson isn't there. if he was playing like he did when he had his cameo roles for England and playing like that for Newcastle and still not scoring, I think he wouldn't be getting as much critique, shall we say. But it's a special position at Newcastle United. It is to be number 9 and to be the goal scorer. And he knows that, and he carries the shirt well, or he has been carrying the shirt well. But to me, I think he needs to be taken out the firing line and be given time to rest. They can't keep saying they're easing Isak in, because Isak's been eased in for the last 2 months now. So if he's not fit, then he's not going to get match fit by not playing either, is he? So yeah, it's, to me, it's an obvious choice. You've got to start Isak up front, and as I said on Wednesday, I'd have ASM on one wing and Gordon on the other, because I think Miggy's been found out. The triangle that Mitch referred to just before there with Trippier, the only decent crosses coming in from the right were from Trippier. Miggy, we watched it yesterday, Mitch, together. Every time he got the ball, you just knew he was going to stop, keep the defender, stop, come back on his left, and it gives them time to turn around and get themselves back in a position. And as we also discussed, you're playing inverted wingers, it narrows the pitch, which takes away the chances for Callum Wilson. So although he's not getting many chances, when he does, he's snatching at them now. He's not just putting them in naturally, because it's like, this is my only chance of getting this game. And if you want to go over the top and defend him, it was on his wrong foot, but still, Premier League centre forward of his ilk should be connecting with that better than he did and putting it in the net, or at least hitting the target. So there's reasons why he's not scoring, but just looking at him, he physically doesn't look as sharp as he was. And if it's rest he needs, let's give him as much rest as possible, because I still think he's got a massive part to play in our campaign going forward for the rest of the season. And then it's up to the owners and the management, who, if that's the position they want, well, one of the positions they want to improve on in the summer. So I would definitely have Isak. I would have ASM on the right, because you look at the difference when Murphy came on. He had a right foot up playing right wing, and he arrowed in 2 or 3 really good crosses that were begging to be hit. Begging, it just needed someone there to gamble, and we could have 2 or 3 goals just in the time Murphy come on. So, I mean, I know it's not really much thinking out the box, and it's quite simple. It is from the outside. But put a left foot on the left wing and get the ball in the box, and that'll help the centre forward, and the same with the right foot on the right wing. But if you have ASM on the right, he's strong on his right, but he still has the tendency to cut in. So that will confuse the defender as well, or at least swap them over for like 10, 15 minutes each off, because it's too comfortable for people playing against them. Now it becomes too pedestrian, too predictable. So although Wilson's not getting the chances, the ones that he does get, he's snatched at them. But if you look at the running he's doing, he's not running at full pelt. So if he's holding back because he's injured or thinks he might be injured, it might be psychological more than physical, then he needs a rest anyway. Because anyone who plays in this team now, we can't keep harking back and saying, 2 years ago we were rubbish. Yes, we were. But in 2 years' time, we want to be like genuine title contenders. So we're at that sliding doors moment where, as we've said many, many times, you've got to take sentiment out of it, you've got to take loyalty out of it, and you've got to play your fittest players and the ones that are best informed in the right positions. That's how you climb the league.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's about making decisions. We'll come on to this in the second half, Eddie Howe. Murphy, he's come on, he's not let us down, Stu. When he's come on, cup final, had a shot, which was curling wide. Came on again yesterday, and he's full of beans. You know what I mean? I know long term maybe he's not the answer, but he's got something about him. He's probably the man who hit the post and bar the most times in the last couple of years as well for Newcastle. Slightly unlucky, but at least he's direct and has a go. And some people in the chat there saying why not give Murphy a chance rather than ASM, who ultimately is not scored a goal since Wolves away and not really created anything, but run around a lot, looked as if he's interested, but ultimately hasn't given us an end result. So is Murphy worth a chance?
I would say so. I mean, I don't think Murphy's the long-term answer, but he's out of the wingers that we've got. He's the one that showed the most form, and not just what he did in the right wing. If you recall back to, it still annoys us this time last week because we should have been crucifying the Freddie Mercury song, shouldn't we? We are the champions. That's what we should have been singing just about this time last week. But Murphy was the one that chased back and stopped the third goal. If you remember, he made a very, very important tackle near the end. So, and he's a Newcastle fan, and he wants to do his best. I think he knows his limitations, but if someone's busting a gut for the team like that, and his end product has been better, his crosses has been better, and I know Max said it on a couple of occasions, he's probably the best crosser of the ball we've got at the club. If that's what we need for the centre forwards, then the answers sometimes can be simple, but can look to overcomplicate things. Get the wingers doing the wingers' jobs and get the centre forward the position where he's in. He's going to miss more than he's going to score anyway. But if he's, like, as I said, it gets highlighted when it's only one chance a game or two chances every 3 games. And, if you play it up front, that becomes a problem psychologically. You start thinking, I've got to score this. But when we were free-flowing at the start of the season, the chances were getting created a lot more. You're going to get 2 or 3 chances as a centre forward for Newcastle United. And that's where we need to get back to. And we've got, even with the personnel we've got, we're more, to me, I still think we're more than capable of putting a run together and finishing 4th. Well, 5th as was my original prediction, but I still think we could finish 4th. The other teams around us have got European football. We don't have that to contend with this season. And I'm not one for saying, this Champions League will come too early, because if we don't make the Champions League, we should be making one of the European competitions. We'll still be playing twice a week. Getting the Champions League, and that gives us more money to spend on better players, and it attracts more sponsorship as well. So we should be going all out. We should have the freshest squad out of the top 6. Well, us plus the top 6, the famous 6, whatever they are. But Chelsea aren't going to get there. So really, we're in a battle with the 5 that are above us now. And we, as I said at the start of the show, Steve, we've got enough games in hand. It's in our destiny. It's in our own hands whether we finish 4th or not. And we've got the run of fixtures now where if the confidence is there, we get a good win next week, and we get the bounceability that comes with that. There's no reason why we can't go 14 games unbeaten again, because all the top teams we've got at home, and we've been imperious at home. Only 2 teams have beat us this season, and that's Liverpool and Man City. And I think we would have, every single one of us would have took that at the start of the season. We're sitting in March. You're only going to get beat of 2 teams. It's Liverpool and Man City. We've got nothing really to complain about.
No, definitely not. George, Callum Wilson, what's your views? And lots of people suggesting different types of lineups. You'll have seen them, lads, coming up on the chat. Gordon, Isak, and Murphy is a potential 3 up front. Other people saying Gordon, Isak, and Wilson should be the 3 next week. What's your views on Wilson, George?
Well, everything that Stu said at the beginning of his piece, I agree with. I like Callum Wilson. He was deadly before the break in everything he did. He ran the channels. He challenged for everything in the air. At the moment, the Callum Wilson with the last 3 games, at least, possibly more, he hasn't been running the channels. He's been there, but he hasn't been pressing like he was pressing before. And the press is going to work. It's got to start at the front as well as the back. And he hasn't been doing that. And he hasn't been challenging in the air like he was doing. And that's what bothers me. He's like a player who's completely out of form. I mean, I love Callum Wilson as a player until recently. And he's just totally out of form. Or there's something serious that we don't know about. And if that's the case, he shouldn't be in the team anyway, in my view. But he's desperately out of form. So, and I think Neil said it, to protect him as much as anything, perhaps he does need a rest. And if you rest him, what do you do? Well, I've got to say, I'm inclined to go a bit left field like you, Steve, and say, well, why not try somebody totally out of position to just somebody that's quick and good in the air and all that sort of thing. Willock's one. If you want to let, for example, if you want to let ASM have a free rein and do all these things up in their penalty area, let him take over up front and let him cause mayhem when he gets the ball. But we need a change, and Murphy deserves a chance in my view. The crosses he put in yesterday were some of the best we've had for ages. And I mean, they were begging to be put in the back of the net. The fact that they wasn't his fault. I mean, it really was tremendous. And as for Wilson's missed chance, I think as even Shearer said, he probably would have put his knee on it rather than let that go without going the back of the net, where Wilson didn't even get like that. He didn't give his shin to it, never mind anything else. It had barely graced his studs, never mind anything. And that's a player that's just totally out of form and out of confidence, in my view. So I would like to see a change. And I think Howe's got to think about Wilson to give him a rest for his sake as much as anything. Because, as I've said more than once this week, if that had been other players playing like he has played for the last 5 or 6 games, they would have been getting the dickens of a dog on here off everybody. He's now starting to get a little bit of it, but I think that's because of the glaring miss yesterday. But he would have been getting it a lot sooner if he'd been one or two other players, like ASM, for example.
Yep. Okay. Over halfway through the show, time for the ads. A big thanks to all our sponsors, Skips and Bins. You can find them at skipsandbins.com. Telephone 0800 25 45 25 3. Email inquiries at skipsandbins.com. Easy contract, free and pay as you go, waste collection. Thanks to Mr. Vicky's sauces, which are handmade in Cumbria. You can order them from mrvickies.co.uk or by calling 01768 210 102. Welcome aboard to Fruy Vita Getaways. You can email them at fruivitagetaways@gmail.com. Call or text them 0792 842 7895. Please join and share their Facebook group as well at Fruy Vita Getaways. Book your holidays or short breaks in the UK or around the world with them. Let them find your happy place. ABTA and ATOL registered. Thanks to Media Arts for all the help with the video side of things. And thanks to qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wallsend, Newcastle. And the guys who run our website, NUFCmatters.com, where you can buy lots of t-shirts and merchandise. If you want to subscribe to the show, hit the subscribe button underneath this video today. It is free to do so. Hit the thumb up to like the video. It's good for the algorithm. And click share to share to your other social media. If you do subscribe, we do send you a free car sticker. To get that, email john@nufcmatters.com and he'll post you one out. If you want to join the NUFC Matters cult, then put your smartphone over this QR code now and it will take you straight there. Alternatively, go to the website, nufcmatters.com, and you can join for a one-off payment of £25. You'll receive a cup, a pen, a membership card, and a scarf, and entry into the monthly draw. You can also join via YouTube, and if you click join beneath the video, you will see a variety of prices and how you can support the channel. You can alternatively make a donation with a super chat in the chat tonight. Just click the $sign. We're also available on iTunes and Spotify and other podcast providers. We also help the food bank on this show. NUFC fans, foodbank.co.uk is where you'll find the matchday bucket, and you can make a virtual donation 365 days of the year. As always, we've got a whole host of events coming up throughout the year. An evening with Nobby Solano takes place on Saturday the 25th of March at the Tyneside Irish Centre. Tickets £15. Book now at nufcmatters.com. An evening with Peter Beardsley at Leamington Labour Club. Tickets are £20. 31st of March. And you can get them direct from the venue. An evening with Nobby Solano, Good Friday, the 7th of April at 4 p.m. Tickets are a tenner and available behind the bar at Felling Cricket Club in Gateshead. An evening with Supermac, hosted by Gibbo at the Tynemouth Surf Cafe, Tuesday the 11th of April. And tickets direct from the venue. This is a limited ticket event, only 35 tickets available, so book soon. And an evening with Frank Clark and John Gibson, Thursday the 20th of April. Tickets are £15. Book now at nufcmatters.com. In June, Rob Lee will be at Louis Liquor Store in Newcastle, and you can get tickets direct from the venue. And an evening with Rob Lee, Lee Clark, John Beresford takes place the following evening, Friday the 2nd of June at the Grand Hotel in Gosforth. This is in aid of the Healing Tour charity, and tickets are available from their website, www.heelandtoe.org.uk/events. And if you're a boxing fan, the Night of Champions comes to Gateshead at the Fed. Frank Bruno, Ricky Hatton, Nigel Benn, and Joe Calzaghe are part of the UK tour, and you can get your tickets from www.goldstarpromotions.co.uk. Just watching back Jamie Carragher sitting next to Gary Neville on the football. That's absolutely hilarious as each goal goes in. I thought I could hear someone laughing. It was Carragher. Okay. PDK said, how is our form not Eddie's fault? If it was Bruce, my God. And Troll says, how picks and trains the team. In the end, it's his responsibility to see if the players are out of form and make changes. And somebody earlier said, could the new owners potentially look at, bringing in somebody else if this form continues, George? I mean, again, really overreaction on social media plays its part when these kind of runs happen.
Course.
And I mean,
of course it is, and that's why I said at the beginning that if Wilson's in the team out of loyalty, then that's a problem for Eddie Howe, because that loyalty will cost him eventually.
Yeah,
not just Wilson; it will cost him eventually, and that's something I wouldn't want to see. That's for sure.
We've got to look at the formation. I think he doesn't seem to have a plan B or C. He tried something different at Wembley, didn't he, George? He brought, he's got this conundrum with Isak. Can he play him? Can he play him with Wilson? And I think that's the thing. He's got to try and find a way of playing them together, hasn't he? And I think, it's fairly obvious what he has to do, but whether he's going to do it.
I think giving him a try wide right, like they did at Southampton, looked like a success to me, because he just ripped the Southampton defender apart. But it is up to Howe. Whoever said that's absolutely right. He picks the team and all the rest of it. But what the conundrum we've got is, I don't think we're playing that bad. Yesterday, there were periods when we were by far the better team. Listen to what Pep Guardiola says about it. He was more worried about us than he has been about other teams because of the way we play. And he said they got beat by Manchester United, but were the best team for most of the match. Well, of course we were. We're not playing that badly. That's the conundrum for us. What's not happening is the goals aren't going in like they were before, and that's something that has to be solved. And for me, that's a personnel problem that needs to be solved. And whether you use Isak as a straight replacement or do something more creative than that, I'd be inclined to go a bit more creative, a bit like you're suggesting. Just give Willock a run because of his pace, or just let ASM go crazy in the penalty area for once, instead of being having to track back to do everything for us. It needs a rethink. There's no doubt about it. But as I say, as I started, if this is out of loyalty, then it could well be very expensive loyalty for Eddie Howe.
Terry says, Steve, stop telling us how bad we were this time last year. Are we not allowed to give some criticism? Yes, you're allowed to give some criticism, Terry. And we often give criticism on this show, mate, to be honest. If you watch it, in fact, we get wrong for giving criticism to certain players. So, listen, Terry, maybe you've tuned in halfway through the show and heard something. But, from our perspective, I think we always give a fairly balanced view. And there's a lot of people on here who give different opinions. It has to be
I go back to what I've just said, we're not actually playing that bad. There was some great play yesterday. And for Lascelles to come in and do what he did was fantastic, was great. Just shows the spirit right through the club from a captain down. All I want is to see we're scoring goals again. And I think eventually we will, but it won't be without a change in personnel. That's my sole criticism.
Is he above criticism, Stu, Eddie Howe? I mean, PDK is not happy with Eddie and what he's been doing in the last 3 games, clearly. But he's entitled to his opinion. What's your thoughts? Is he above criticism? I think it's a bit early to start having a go at the manager, but that's my opinion.
No, he's not above criticism, and I think Eddie Howe would be the first one to say that as well. He's normally honest in his assessments, and I don't think he's been judged on the last 3 games. It's since the turn of the year, isn't it? It's creating. To me, they're not creating the chances. They have become more predictable, pedestrian, and stuff like that. In the final third, and that killer instinct's gone. Regarding Eddie Howe, I think I've said it many times. He could be our most successful manager ever. But at the same time, knowing how the Saudis work, the one thing I've been very consistent about since the takeover is, because I work with the Saudis a lot, as I've mentioned many times as well, is they will get the right people to do the right job, and they'll pay for that. And they're not in this just be nice and win a few friends. They're in this to win it. And that's what we want to support us. We want our board to be in it to win it. Now, by saying that doesn't mean I think that they will get rid of Eddie Howe. But if the decline continues and the results don't pick up, then I wouldn't be surprised. Hopefully that's not the case, because I think he's re-galvanised the club. And going back to one of your earlier points that you and George were saying about playing different people, there was one phrase that Mitch used to use a lot during the Steve Bruce era, and that was square pegs and round holes. Why on earth would we be paying people out of position when we've got people in the right positions? We've got the formation, and the formation has worked. It's just the players playing in it at the moment. It's not working for them. And maybe Eddie Howe's at the stage where he's thought, you know what? I need to change it now. I've given them my loyalty. I've listened to them. Yeah, I'm fit. I can do this. I can do this. But he's shown with earlier in this week with Ryan Fraser that he hasn't got the loyalty's not there. You know what I mean? If he's going to be loyal to some, it'll be the ones that he brought or the ones that he knew from Bournemouth. But he's been barred from the club, hasn't he? So. And at the same time, he does have that ruthless streak. So I wouldn't be surprised if he did make changes, but I can't see him changing the formation. Again, that's in my opinion. I can't see him changing that formation. The personnel, yes. The formation, no.
Yeah, I mean, the Ryan Fraser thing is interesting. I mean, it's the first time I've seen him, come out and do that with a first team player. Somebody, of course, who 4 weeks ago, and I've pointed it out, when we were building up to the game of the weekend, that he'd said, I can't wait to see him in a black and white shirt again. So something clearly has happened in the space of 4 weeks, which, he's not been happy about. And if he can do that with him, then he can do that. He can do that with anybody. So, that's a ruthless. He can, again, that kind of thing has, it has its effect in the dressing room. We don't know how popular Ryan Fraser is in the dressing room. We don't know who he's pals with. It can affect that kind of relationship that you have in the dressing room, which has been a strong part of our success this year. They've all talked about it, not knocking the equilibrium in the dressing room and, having the team photos and all that. And, you just don't know. Maybe that's had a little part to play as well. But maybe we're just going through some bad form. And bad form against the three of the best teams in the Premier League, it has to be said, on their day. I'll take 2-0 defeats and then go into these next 2 games and get a couple of wins, and then let's do a number on Manchester United when they come to St James's Park. That would be fantastic. And we've got a key game coming up against Spurs in April as well. So some big games ahead. I just want people to try and stay uplifted, from my perspective. Mitch. Eddie Howe.
Before you go to Mitch, I can expand a bit more on the Fraser, because this is some information I got whilst I was in Newcastle last week.
All right.
So I will say allegedly for the sake of the channel.
Yeah.
This is allegedly, and I'm no doubt other people will claim it to be their exclusive and then sell it off with T-shirts that they've borrowed and stuff. But what apparently has happened is Fraser's been had his nose put out because he's not getting the game time that he thinks he deserves. There's other wingers getting put in front of him, and he's becoming a bit, shall we say, disruptive in training. And now this come to a head earlier in the week where Kieran Trippier called him out on it. This again, it's all allegedly. Kieran Trippier called him out on it. So he got a volley full of abuse back off Fraser, and who do you think you are, etc., etc. So Trippier told him he was a disgrace, and Fraser physically went for him. And let's just say that Fraser ended up on his backside. So that's, and then within seconds, Eddie Howe come over and says, that's it, I've had enough. I'm not going through this again with you. Get out. And he threw him out. He says, you'll not train with this first team squad again. You're with the under-21s. And he got kicked off the training ground. Now, it's from a source that to me is 100% accurate. But when you're saying things like that, you've got to be careful. That's why I'll say allegedly. But that's what I was told happened earlier this week. Kieran Tripper got the full backing of Eddie Howe, and rightly so. And that's why Fraser was sent out, or banished, shall we say, from the first team squad.
Well, that's all allegedly, as you've said. You know, from my perspective, that's the first time I've heard that. And I've got to be honest, if that is the case, then, you know, these things happen in the dressing room. And Eddie Howe did say last weekend that he was, you know, he wants those kind of things to stay within the dressing room, but he knows things will get out. So that would probably make sense as to why he said that as well.
Well, within an hour, apparently the statement came out that he wasn't to be part of the team.
Right.
So
Okay.
he was serious about it. By all, he was apparently very angry, was Mr. Howe.
Oh, well, there you go, and that is interesting. We'll wait and see. As I say, it's all allegations, so we can't state that that's fact, and neither can Stu. So, you know, we will wait and see if anything comes out about that. Let's hope Craig Hope does some digging. He seems to be very good at getting the real story when he wants to. That is. So, Mitch, you know, Eddie Howe, is he above criticism?
Nobody's above criticism, and I think we have often delivered criticism where it's due. We should be the club's critical friend, surely. We should be in that position as a fan base. You know, we're not liking what we're seeing. What can we do about it? You know, it's odd how within the fan base, though, we seem to have many extremes, whereby there's an overreaction to so many things. So, for classic example, we criticise ASM, and then people are, well, don't criticise him. It's more than just him. Well, we'll call out what we are seeing with our own eyes. We're not stupid. This is one of the battles we had with Bruce. He'd pee on my back and tell me it was raining, you know. And so we get hammered as a fan base for calling him out. Believe you me, if we felt that something was going drastically wrong with the team at the minute and that the manager was to blame for it, I think very much you'd hear that criticism from the fan base. I don't think we're frightened to do that at all. I get the argument about people saying, oh, well, how long do we go backwards and say, well, look where we were. But also, we've got to temper that with, was, by God, we're well ahead of schedule. And that's down to the man in the dressing room. It's down to the manager and what he's done with that team.
Yeah.
That started with that ridiculous run of form that got out of trouble. They've all given themselves, the owners and the manager, have given themselves a very long honeymoon period, in my opinion, and they deserve that. But I don't think as a fan base we're frightened or worried about criticising anything if we're not happy about it. What we're actually doing at the minute is we're trying to find answers. Well, what is happening? Why aren't we looking quite the same? But if you boil it down to the stats still say the XJ says we're still creating the same amount of chances. We're just not putting them away. Yeah. And if that's the case, that will change one day. That'll turn around. And so I think we're allowed to be critical, but also have to try and be constructively so. So it just doesn't get it doesn't sound ingracious or not aware of what's gone on in the last couple of years. Nobody was more disappointed than me last Sunday. I was really hacked off. But as the week's gone on, I've sort of gained a little bit more of a level head on it. But I did find generally the atmosphere amongst our fans out here in Dubai was quite flat yesterday. I think we've had a little bit of the stuffing kicked out of the way, and we've just got to find a way to get it back. And I think a performance on the pitch will rekindle that synergy that happens between fan base and team, that we all are very, very well aware of how amazing it can be when we're all pulled together. So I think stick with the lads, stick with the manager. They're not doing a lot wrong, but I think I would like to see more from Howe in terms of, well, what other options do you have? What else do you have up your sleeve? Or are we just going to persist with this one way of doing things? Because that doesn't seem to be turning the run of form around.
Make Trippier charge hands, says Gary Milligan. I'm going to give Tom Dixon the last question, which might take us a little bit in extra time. He asked it right at the start of the show, George. Roberto Firmino is leaving Liverpool. Scored a great goal today, by the way, at the end of the season. Would you like to see him at Newcastle?
Not particularly.
No. Any particular reason? Too old, too past it, too much money?
Too much money and on his way down. If he was on his way up, I'd say, yeah, fine. But he's on his way down, and we don't want players that are on their way down. We want players that are on their way up.
Okay. Mitch, are you same as your dad?
Yeah, I think the days of us taking players at the tail end of careers as they're leaving big clubs should be gone. We need to be looking for the next bright young thing that's on the way up.
All right. And Stu?
Totally agrees with what the Mitchells have said. We shouldn't be looking at other people's cast-offs. We should be competing with the players that they're looking for to replace this type of person. Before I go, I'm going to have to give a shout-out to Councillor Stephen Bowron, or Spenny, as people know him as, because he's watching the show and he's been badgering us on WhatsApp to say his name on TV.
and say Councillor as well.
Spenny, I'm so delighted that you've tuned in. And if you enjoy Westminster Court as much as me and Mitch did last week, you're going to have a fantastic time.
Yeah. Looking forward to the NUFC Matters trip down to Westminster. So we're going to all have a cuppa in there with all those people who were sitting and watch on Prime Minister's Question Time. That'll be great, Spenny. Looking forward to that. Okay, great show as always. I am back with the Fans Forum, 6 o'clock tomorrow, and keep an eye out for the retro shows, as I've called them, with Malcolm and Gibbo. Some great stuff, and if you get a bit down, watch them and listen to us talk about numerous defeats and Mike Ashley. It'll cheer you up. Okay, take care. See you tomorrow. Thanks, guys.
Ta-da, lads. See ya.